Amelia Russo wiped sweat from her brow as she clocked out of her third double shift that week at Chez Monique. The upscale restaurant paid well, but the exhaustion was catching up to her. She tucked her tips barely enough for this month's art. School tuition payment tinned to her worn leather wallet and headed out into the crisp autumn night. Taking the shortcut through Westlake Alley tonight, she texted her roommate Zoe. Don't wait up. The city had always felt safe to her until it didn't. The footsteps behind her started casually enough, but their increasing pace made her heart race. When she turned the corner into the dimly lit alley, two more figures emerged from the shadows ahead. Well, look who decided to take a shortcut, the tallest one said, his voice sending ice through her veins. Pretty girls shouldn't walk alone at night. They formed a triangle around her three men, with predatory smiles. The streetlight caught the glint of metal in one man's hand. I don't want trouble, Amelia said, her voice steadier than she felt. Take my wallet. Oh, we want more than that, sweetheart, the one with the knife replied, reaching for her arm. A voice, cold as steel, cut through the night. I believe the lady wants to be left alone. The figure that stepped out of the shadows was imposing tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. Even in the dim light, Amelia recognized him.
Us.
Adrian Kane, the notoriously ruthless CEO of Kane Enterprises. His face had been splashed across business magazines for years always, with headlines about hostile takeovers and shattered competitors. The men laughed. Mind your business, suit, the knife wielder said, turning toward Adrian. There's three of us and one of you. Something shifted in Adrian's eyes, a flash of something primal replacing his businesslike composure. Poor odds, he said quietly. For you? What happened next occurred so quickly that Amelia could barely process it. Adrian moved with a fighter's precision. No wasted motion, no hesitation. The knife clattered to the ground as its owner howled in pain. The second man charged, and was airborne before hitting the wall with a sickening thud. The third tried to run, but Adrian caught him with terrifying ease, whispering something that drained all color from the man's face before letting him scramble away. When Adrian turned back to her, Amelia pressed herself against the wall, equally, afraid of her attackers and her savior. Are you hurt? He asked, his voice gentler than she would have expected. No, she whispered, thank you. His Bentley appeared at the alley entrance, as if summoned by thought alone. Let me drive you home, Miss. Amelia Russo. You're safe now, Amelia Russo, he said, opening the car door. I promise. The interior of Adrian Kane's Bentley smelled of expensive leather and subtle cologne. Amelia sat rigidly, hands folded in her lap, still processing what had happened. The billionaire beside her was an enigma, the ruthless businessman who had just displayed combat skills. That would make special forces envious. You're a waitress at Chez Monique? Adrian stated, rather than asked, eyes fixed on the road. Amelia glanced at him, startled. How did you your uniform? He replied simply. I own the building. Of course he did. Adrian Kane owned half the city, according to rumors. What I don't understand, she found her voice growing stronger, is how the CEO of Kane Enterprises fights like ... that. Something flickered across his face, a shadow of memory. Life wasn't always boardrooms and acquisitions, Ms. Russo. Clearly, she said, but you don't have to tell me. You've done enough already. The car stopped in front of her modest apartment building, and Adrian stepped out, opening her door with unexpected courtesy. Will you be all right? He asked, scanning the street with vigilant eyes. Yes, thank you again, Mr. Kane. Adrian, he corrected, then hesitated. Would it be inappropriate to check on you tomorrow? The question surprised them both. I suppose. Not, she replied. His business card appeared between his fingers. My personal number. In case you need anything. 2 nights later, Amelia's phone chimed with a text. There's a gallery opening tomorrow. The artist reminds me of your work. She froze. How did he know about her art? She hadn't mentioned it. The gallery was exclusive, filled with Manhattan's elite. Adrian materialized beside her, handsome in a midnight blue suit. That's sketchin'. Your bag the other night, he explained, noting her confusion. You're talented. They've walked through exhibits, his knowledge of art surprisingly extensive. Later, over dinner at a restaurant closed just for them, she gathered courage. Why did you really invite me tonight? Adrian's gaze locked with hers. I don't know, he admitted. I haven't invited anyone anywhere in years, because of your past, she ventured. His jaw tightened. What do you know about my past? Nothing, she said softly, but I recognize someone running from something. The wall behind his eyes momentarily cracked. Perhaps we have that in common. As they parted that evening, Adrian hesitated before saying, people believe I'm cold because it's safer that way. Safer for whom? Amelia asked. His answer was barely audible. For anyone who might make the mistake of getting close to me. For 3 weeks, Adrian and Amelia existed in a strange orbit of expensive dinners. Late-night conversations and an unspoken understanding that whatever was happening between them defied conventional explanation. The ice in Adrian's demeanor thawed incrementally in her presence like a glacier exposed to unexpected warmth. Tonight, they walked along the river after leaving the symphony. Amelia wrapped in the cashmere coat he draped over her shoulders when she shivered. You never talk about your family, she observed, watching his profile in the moonlight. There's nothing to discuss, he replied, his voice carrying that edge that usually ended conversations. But something had changed between them. Amelia? No. Longer retreated from those edges. The way you fought those men, she said quietly. That wasn't executive self-defense classes. Adrian stopped walking, his gaze fixed on the distant shoreline. No, it wasn't. Then what was it? His sigh formed a cloud in the cold air. When I was 12, my father died owing money to dangerous people. My mother couldn't pay. They gave her an alternative I could fight in their underground matches. To work off the debt? Amelia's breath caught. You were just a child. I was big for my age, he said with grim detachment. By 16, I was undefeated. By 20, I had enough money to start investing. By 30, I bought the buildings where those matches were held and shut them down. And your mother? Cancer took her before I made my first million, he said. She never saw me become ... this. His vulnerability in that moment struck her more powerfully than his physical strength ever had. Impulsively, she reached for his hand. Is that why you helped me that night? Because no one helped you? Adrian's fingers tightened around hers. Perhaps, or perhaps you remind me of who I might have been in a different life. Later that evening, outside her apartment, their goodbye lingered. When his lips finally met hers, it wasn't the calculated move of a man who controlled every situation. It was tentative, almost questioning. I should go, he whispered against her mouth. Or you could stay, she offered, just to talk. Till dawn, they sat on her small balcony as Adrian canned the man, whose name made CEOs tremble, spoke of fighting rings and survival, of learning to hurt before being hurt, of building walls so high that even he sometimes forgot what lay behind them. You're the first person I've told, he admitted, as morning light painted the sky. I'm not sure why. Amelia touched his face, tracing a nearly invisible scar above his eyebrow. Maybe because some wounds need air to heal. The tabloids exploded with speculation when Adrian Kane, notorious recluse and corporate, shark, began appearing publicly with an unknown waitress turned our student. Business rivals whispered that he'd finally lost his edge. Society matrons, who had failed to secure his attention for years, watched with calculating eyes, waiting for the novelty to fade. They're writing about us again, Amelia said, showing Adrian her phone screen as they lounged in his penthouse. The headline read, Beauty Tames the Beast, Kane's mysterious girlfriend. Does it bother you? He asked, his reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed contracts. Being called your girlfriend? Or being called mysterious? She teased. His smile, still rare, but increasingly frequent, warmed his eyes. Both. I don't mind the girlfriend part, she admitted, watching his expression carefully. Before he could respond, his security chief, Damon, entered with a troubled expression. Sir, there's a situation. Viktor Resnick is making moves against your European holdings. Adrian's face instantly hardened into the mask the business world feared. Excuse me, Amelia. Hours later, he returned to find her still there, sketching. the cityscape from his window. Resnick is an old associate, Adrian explained without prompting. From before, he recognized me at the charity gala last week. From the fighting days, Amelia inferred. Yes, he's threatening to expose my past unless I sell him my shipping interests at a fraction of their worth. She set down her sketchpad. Would that be so terrible? People knowing? It's not about shame, Adrian said, loosening his tie. It's about weakness. In my world, the appearance of vulnerability invites attack. Like sharks smelling blood, she murmured. Precisely. So what will you do? Adrian's expression turned distant. What I've always done? Eliminate the threat. The coldness in his voice chilled her. By ruining him. It's business, Amelia, is it? Or is it the fighter who learned to strike? First, she challenged. You've built your entire empire around protecting yourself from people like him. But what if there's another way? What way? Asked, a edge of frustration breaking through. The truth. Own your story before he can use it against you. Adrian laughed bitterly. You're suggesting I announce to the world that I was essentially a child gladiator? I'm suggesting, she said, taking his hand, that your past made you strong, not weak. And hiding it gives men like Resnick power over you that they don't deserve. He stared at their intertwined fingers. You make it sound simple. It's not, she acknowledged. But neither is living behind glass walls, always afraid of the stone that might shatter everything. The press conference was scheduled for noon. At Kane Tower, rumors swirled about a major acquisition or perhaps a retirement. Adrian Kane never addressed the media personally unless something momentous was occurring. Backstage, Amelia straightened Adrian's already perfect tie. Are you certain about this? His eyes held a serenity she'd never seen before. For the first time in my life? Yes. When he stepped to the podium, cameras flashed like lightning. The assembled journalists fell silent as Adrian Cannon, famous for his ruthless tactics and impenetrable privacy, began speaking not about business, but about a 12-year-old boy forced to fight for survival. The world knows me as a man who built an empire, he said, his deep voice steady. Today I want to tell you about the boy who built the man. For 20 minutes he spoke of underground fights and desperate choices of learning to view vulnerability as a fatal flaw, of building walls so high that he himself became imprisoned by them. I am not ashamed of surviving, he concluded, but I am finished letting that survival define how I live. My company's new foundation will combat child exploitation and provide opportunities for at-risk youth. In the final row, Victor Resnick slipped out. His leverage evaporated in the face of Adrian's confession. Later, at Adrian's estate overlooking the ocean, Amelia found him on the terrace, tension finally easing from his shoulders. Your phone's been ringing constantly, she noted, joining him. Damon says our stock actually went up, Adrian replied with bemused surprise, and the foundation has already received millions in donations. People respect honesty, she said, and strength. I've been thinking about strength, he mused, taking her hand. I spent my life believing it meant never yielding, never trusting. I was wrong. The sunset painted them in gold as he turned to face her fully. You asked me once why I helped you that night, he said. I think now I understand. I saw someone who might need protection, but what I found was someone who would protect me from myself. Is that what love is? She asked softly. Mutual protection? Perhaps, Adrian said, drawing her closer. Or perhaps it's mutual surrender. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box. I've conquered markets and built empires, but nothing has ever terrified me as much as the thought of losing you. The ring inside was vintage, not the ostentatious diamond expected of a billionaire, but a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. It was my mother's, he explained. The one thing she refused to sell, even in our darkest times. She said it should go to someone who could see beyond walls. Tears welled in Amelia's eyes. And can I see beyond them? You're the only one who? Everest, Adrian whispered. Marry me, Amelia Rousseau. Not because I need saving, but because you make me want to be saved. Her answer came not in words, but in the kiss that followed a promise between two people who had found in each other the courage to be vulnerable, to be seen, to be loved, not despite their pasts, but because of how those pasts had shaped them into who they were meant to become. Together as they embraced on the terrace, neither noticed the dark figure watching from the cliffs below, a face from Adrian's past that he thought long buried. The man's scarred hands clenched around a worn photograph of a younger Adrian standing over his defeated opponent in the ring. "Enjoy your fairy tale, Kane," he whispered, his breath fogging in the evening air. "Some debts can never truly be paid." He slipped back into the shadows, already planning the moment when Adrian's newfound happiness would shatter like glass beneath his fist, proving once and for all that in their world, vulnerability always came with a price.